Welcome to Kardec Radio, where you nourish your soul daily. As you wait for our next program, The Medium's Book, visit Kardec Publisher at kardecpublisher.com to check out our latest books. Also, check out our Kardec Flicks, Spiritism in a Click. Just go to kardecflix.com. And now with you, our host, Dr. Vanessa Anceloni, with the program The Medium's Book. Enjoy it.
Hello, beloved friends, and welcome to another study of the Medium's Book by Kardec. As we continue this study together, tonight we will focus our attention on the role that the medium plays in communications. Kardec had many questions to ask the illuminated spirits in this regard, and we shall tonight explore some of them together, shall we? So the first observation that we would like to call our attention to, dear friends, is that according to the Spiritist lens, mediums are intermediaries between the physical and the spiritual realms. Did we know that prior to the codification of Spiritism by Allan Kardec, there was no such a term, mediums? Kardec is the one that coined this term to refer to this intermediary between the two realms. So we take, for instance, Chico Xavier as an example. He devoted his life to the practice of mediumship, but not just any kind of practice, not the type of practice that is focused upon his own self-interest, his own goals. No, beloved friends, Chico Xavier succeeded in practicing mediumship because he practiced mediumship in accordance with the Christ consciousness guidelines. And doing so, beloved friends, is a form of charity. So what may be, we ask, the difference between practicing mediumship in general and practicing mediumship in accordance with the Christ conscious guidelines? Well, this is a valid question that it is worth for us to ponder upon. First, we know that mediumship is not a faculty that emerged with Spiritism. Though Kardec was the first to systematically study it like a science, approaching it with his educator and researcher mindset, looking for evidence and systematizing the evidence very effectively. And although Kardec was the first to coin the term medium and mediumship meaning the communication between the physical and the spiritual world, has always existed. For instance, Moses was able to mediumistically receive the Ten Commandments. Jesus was able and is able to be the medium of God, as he was and is the personification of God's laws. And since before Jesus, we know that there were oracles that used to feel the influence from the spirits, people who used to feel the influence of the spirits and sell information for money according to what their clientele wished to know. We see narratives like this, for instance, shared with us in the book 2000 Years Ago by Emmanuel through Chico Xavier. And to this date, we still see psychics that sell the faculty, that monetize mediumship. But in Spiritism, we learn and we are invited to give freely what we receive freely, meaning mediumship and all of our other faculties, mediumship included, come from God. And because it comes from God freely to us, we shall also give it freely as a form of consolation, as Chico Xavier has done throughout his practice of mediumship, and of course, as our guide and model, Master Jesus, has always done as well. So, when we do choose to practice mediumship in accordance with this virtue based mindset, it is considered a form of charity because we give to our brothers and sisters in the spiritual realm consolation and hope, and we bring consolation and hope to our incarnate brothers and sisters, in the same way that we would like to be consoled as well. So we are giving freely what we receive freely, and thus we are practicing charity. In Spiritism, we consider mediumship an opportunity for us to practice true anonymous charity. So, with this in mind, dear friends, let us explore a question that Kardec asked the illuminated spirits while he was putting together the Medium's Book, which is considered a manual for this practice, according to the Spiritist science. So Kardec wanted to know, how can we tell if the communicating spirit in a mediumistic meeting is that of the medium himself of her, or herself or not? Remember, this when Kardec started studying the communication between two worlds, he truly wanted to understand how it operated. This is why he asked so many questions that are available for us to study. Since in Spiritism, we do not just take things as they are, we use reasoning to understand our reality. So, in a much logical manner, Kardec asked, how can we tell the difference between the possibility of the communicating spirit being that of the medium or not? And the illuminated spirits answer in the following manner: by the nature of the communication. So they invite us to study the circumstances and the language, observe and study. Let us pause for a second, beloved friends. We know, for instance, that during Kardec's time, the mediums that were part of his mediumistic meetings were young adults who were 14 or 15 or 16 years old. And at that time, women did not have access to schooling in the same fashion that we do today. So, how could it have been possible for them to fabricate, even intuitively, the dissertations that have been written by St. Augustine, Paul of Tarsus, and many others, St. Vincent de Paul, that are available to us, for instance, in the Spirit's Book, in the Gospel according to Spiritism, throughout the codification? impossible for them to fabricate this. This is why Kardec said we can rule out the possibility of the communication being that of the medium himself or herself by observing the language and the facts. So, this is a take home message for us. It is important for us to practice mediumship in a group, in a teamwork fashion. First, because we live in accordance to the law of society. This is a divine law. And second, by working in a team, it is easier for us together to analyze the language and observe the facts of the communication as Kardec and the illuminated spirits propose to us. So it is important as well for us to constantly instruct ourselves so that we can be better instruments in the hands of the good spirits, so that together with our mediumistic team, we are better equipped to make good judgment of the communications that come into play. Again, utilizing reason and faith together. This is the proposal that is unique to Spiritism. No longer do we have to choose between either faith or reason. Now we utilize both of them together. Let us then go back to where we were, shall we? So then Kardec, because at his time there were turning tables, he asked if there could be mediumship in inert objects like tables. Some questioned at Kardec's time if the tables that were moving had some kind of intelligent principle. And the spirit mentors answered to Kardec and all of us that tables and baskets are no more intelligent than a stick. That is to say, they have no intelligent sentiment but obey unintelligence. So, beloved friends, another take home message for us. It is important for us to, again, utilize our reasoning and know that no longer do we have the need to attach ourselves to lucky charms or objects of any nature to be instruments of the good, mediumistically speaking. For many millennia, we have been superstitious. We have believed that in order to be good instruments, mediumistically speaking, or to be inspired by the good spirits, we would need to have a lucky pen or a lucky charm or a stone or a crystal, etc. Recently, we were able to see a fair right now in 2025 where people still believed that a little bottle filled with sand could bring healing. So, beloved friends, we are now being invited to come to understand that we do not need any object, any special object of any nature to communicate with God or to communicate with our brothers and sisters who have preceded us in the great transition to the beyond. Often we even see in Hollywood movies the types of witch boards where certain objects move around, and in Hollywood there's talk about exorcisms in movies, believing that certain objects may cleanse our homes, etc. But now we know for a fact that mediumship is not connected to inert objects, that there's always an intelligent principle operating upon mediumistic um, manifestations. So even at Kardec's time, when, for instance, there was tapping involved, it was because utilizing the ectoplasm of mediums that work in Kardec's team, the experimenters were able to call Kardec's attention to particular revisions that he needed to make to the works in this particular way. So even physical manifestations have a purpose, a rational, useful purpose for the greater good, beloved friends. So take home message for each and every one of us. Let us set ourselves free from superstitions and come to understand that we do not need any lucky charms to be useful to the good spirits for the greater good. What a beautiful realization that we have come to embrace. Let us then continue, beloved friends. Oops, 1 second. So, our next question that Kardec brought about is, how do the scarlet spirits then, if we don't need any lucky charms, how do the scarlet spirits communicate with incarnates? And the mentor spirits clarify to Kardec and all of us that when addressing the incarnate spirit of the medium, that the scarlet spirit speaks in the universal language of thought. And they further explain that in order to translate its ideas into articulate, transmissible language, the discarnate spirit utilizes the vocabulary of the medium. So, as we see in the picture, dear friends, the medium is able to capture the communicating spirit's thoughts and experiences through their own perispirit, through a mind to mind connection. And thus, the medium serves like a pencil in the spirit's hands. The scarlet spirit guides the medium to articulate their thoughts through their mind to mind connection, perispirit to perispirit. And how do they communicate their ideas more clearly? Utilizing the repertoire that the medium already has. So, this is why, beloved friends, it is very important that we as mediums are able to constantly instruct ourselves, because the more information, the more knowledge we have, the more or the greater our repertoire is to allow spirits to communicate more freely. For example, let us take Chico Xavier as a point of reference. When Chico Xavier was very, very young, he used to have a vegetable garden as a young adult to help his family. And he recounts to us in the TV program Pinga Fogo that is available on YouTube with English subtitles that the spirit of the Brazilian poet Augusto dos Anjos approached him as he was watering his vegetable garden and started inspiring Chico Xavier with the most beautiful poem about the galaxies throughout the universe. But Chico Xavier didn't have enough knowledge, for instance, of astrophysics to be able to capture all of Augusto dos Anjos' ideas. So Augusto dos Anjos said, "Oh, okay, I will simplify my poem then. I will not insist." So this is an anecdote that Chico Xavier shared with us very humbly to show us the importance of us continually studying and improving ourselves so that we can be better instruments of the good on earth. This is why Chico Xavier always said as well that Emmanuel, his spirit mentor, continually instructed him so that he would be a sharper instrument in the hands of the spirit mentors. So let us, beloved friends, dedicate ourselves to learning the new and studying, not to be proud of what we have learned, but rather to put what we learn at the hands of the good spirits for the collective good, shall we? So then, how do we become good spirits in the hands of good instruments, excuse us, in the hands of the good spirits? The spirit mentors explain that there is a need for us to be prepared with enough mental elements. So, this is why it's important for us to study. And we may argue, oh, but how could Chico Xavier be such a good instrument, being that he only received formal education up to fourth grade? Because, beloved friends, probably he was an intellectual in previous lives at some point, and he had a lot of knowledge in his repertoire. And also, he was humble as well, not to impose his own will on the communications, but rather to surrender to the spirit mentor's proposals. So much so that he psychographed information that is only now being proven by material science. He was very courageous and very humble at the same time, for he always told each and every one of us that the mediumistic works were not his. They belonged to the spirits alone. So, in order for us to be good instruments in the hands of the good spirits, we not only need to study, but we also need to be able to humbly surrender to the guidance of the good spirits, knowing that all good on earth comes from God and not from us. If we are able to practice mediumship with humility, knowing that we are but mere instruments in the hands of good spirits, then we shall succeed in practicing mediumship according to the Christ conscious guidelines as a form of charity, as Chico Xavier has done. So let us talk a little bit about this Christ conscious mediumship. When we practice mediumship not for self fulfilling purposes, not for our own interest, not to monetize it, not to call anyone's attention, not to be famous, not to people please, but rather to be useful to the collective, we have a unique opportunity to practice teamwork because we know that good mediumistic groups are like an orchestra where the good spirits are the conductors, and each and every one of us are instruments that play to form together a harmonious melody. In order for us to feel the power of togetherness, we need to practice forgetting about ourselves. It doesn't matter who communicated through us, it doesn't matter the words that we were an instrument of, it doesn't matter whether we were acknowledged or not. What matters is that we are practicing the opportunity to serve anonymously because no one knows what we are doing, and we also don't know the identity of the spirits communicating through us. And so, this is a great opportunity for us to practice selflessness, much like God. God works constantly out of love, and never do we hear God saying, "Hey, everyone, I give you everything. How about you acknowledge me?" No, right? So, we, in order to become pure spirits in the future and to continue evolving, also need to practice mediumship through the lenses of selflessness. But in order for us to be selfless, we need to be humble, knowing that everything comes from God and that we together can co create the good but not be the center of the good. And we also have the unique opportunity to practice discipline because in order for us to be able to work productively with the good spirits, we need to devote ourselves to this practice. And as we devote ourselves through to this practice without thinking of ourselves, through teamwork and with humility, we only focus on serving others. And this is how we learn to use and practice mediumship as a form of charity, only to bring consolation to others. And this is how, beloved friends, you and I become mediums of the good. Shall we practice within the next 24 hours? Let us take our guide and model as an inspiration, beloved friends, and become conscious mediums of the good, speaking the good, thinking the good, feeling the good, sharing the good, knowing that whether we are in a mediumistic meeting or not, we are constantly invited to be in communion with the good spirits, and that each and every one of our guardian angels are ready to commune with us as we put ourselves of service, as we make ourselves of service to others selflessly, as our beautiful Master has done. So, thank you for joining us tonight. Next week, we will study the moral influence of the medium, always inspired by our guide and model. Thank you so much for joining us once again, and let us stay tuned to Kardec Radio, where you and I are always nourishing our souls. Thank you so much. Bye, friends.